Thank you very much. I have a speech defect, but so did John Rawls and Churchill and Marilyn Monroe, so I feel I'm in excellent company. I was very pleased to hear, and I didn't know this before, about the cooperation between the IEA and this institution, and I think that's a great great idea. Maybe Cato can do the same thing in Washington and start our own university. What a great idea. I'm working on a book which I can't keep my hands off of. I sent the book a few months ago to the University of Chicago Press, and they're ruminating on it. But I keep working on it. I come to the office. I intend to do that editorial that I had promised, or work on another book, and I think, no, I think I'll go work on this one, because I'm learning political philosophy as I try to do it, and you'll soon see that I'm very amateur as a philosopher, but I've long had an interest in philosophy as a consumer, as a sort of respectful outsider. The name of the book is the title of my talk, and I keep slightly changing it, of course, as one always does. It's equality of permission as the core of what we normally call classical liberalism. You'll notice that I always stutter on my favorite word, liberalism, liberty. I wish I could stop doing it. It's very offensive. And the argument of the book is that the first liberalism of Adam Smith and Mary Wollstonecraft, early John Stuart Mill, Henry David Thoreau in the United States was an advocate for this. The French physiocrats, the school of Salamanca before. This early liberalism was the correct one. We're to speak about the diversity of classical liberalism, but I think it should be thought of as diversity within one innocuous but important and new premise. New in the 18th century, especially in the late 18th century, especially in Scotland and in the American colonies. And that's the proposition that all men, and with women, dear, are created equal. And it's the only assertion that people were making in this early classical liberalism was the new wish, the novel wish for equality of permission. By that I mean not having what my mom used to call hooks or chairs in the way of anyone. You're not to be denied entrance to Oxford and Cambridge because you're a nonconformist or a Jew, for instance. You're not to be, as my mother was, denied the right to open a bank account if the banks want to allow you to. It's the banks who should decide, because you're married and need the co-signing of your husband. You're not to be prevented from voting in the American South because you're black. You're not to be regulated out of your burning desire to heal people. There's not to be any occupational licensure. There aren't to be guilds with the force of law. One of the first things that the French revolutionary armies did when they invaded everybody was to abolish guilds, because in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen of August 1789, that's one of the things they said should go. So it was, of course, everyone knows this, a criticism of the ancien regime, of the hierarchy, the naturalized hierarchy. And our claim as classical liberals has been that that's got to go, but that we hold in common with all modern political movements. That's not unique to us. What's unique is that we don't want to reestablish a state hierarchy in its place. That was the office of the new liberalism of the 1880s in the UK. This bizarre flipping of the whole theme of liberalism, articulated in 1685 on his scaffold in Edinburgh by Richard Rumbold. I think that there is no man born of God above another, for none comes into the world with a saddle on his back, neither any booted and spurred to ride him. That was to be overturned, this notion of hierarchy. But in the 1880s, philosophers in Britain said, well, but the state should be, and this is also late John Stuart Mill, the state should be brought in to help the poor and to put hooks and chairs in the way of everyone. And of course, after 1848, this is all after 1848, at the other extreme, or the more extreme version of this same feeling that the state should provide, the state should come in, that it's laughable in classical liberalism, as Anatole France put it, the law in its glory allows both the rich and the poor to sleep under the bridges and steal bread for their and punish people for stealing their bread. So we have socialism and new liberalism, and in most free countries, one or another of these is the ideal. My figure of speech in thinking about this, and I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts on the matter, is of a race, a foot race. As Ecclesiastes says wisely, the battle is not always to the strong, and the race is not always to the swift, for time and chance happeneth to all. All right. But in the race of life, there's a starting line and there's a finish line. And the claim of socialism is equality at the finish line, or perhaps at mile 2 of the race. And the claim of the new liberalism, still with us, my friends on the left, and me for a long time, thought that equality of opportunity was what we wanted. Not equality of outcome, that paying the brain surgeon and the brain surgeon and the truck driver the same is not a smart idea. It's been tried on in large scale and hasn't worked. No, instead we're going to have equality of opportunity, and then it's race on. And you're to race to become a brain surgeon, and that's great, but you start at the same point as the truck driver. And that has great appeal. Those both do. Equality of outcome and equality of opportunity. And they work within small groups of friends or in families, and should. The family, after all, is a thoroughly socialist enterprise. Centrally planned, of course, by the adults, and from each according to her ability, to each according to her need. You don't send your 6-year-old son out into the market to earn the money for lunch. You give it to him. And that's entirely appropriate and is marvelous and fine. Among friends, if I buy the pizza for the party, and I say to my friends, I bought the pizza, so I'm going to eat it all. I'm not going to be invited to the next party. That's quite clear. So among friends and small groups, socialism or equality of opportunity are not only practical, workable, attainable, but ethically desirable. But among large groups, neither of them is either possible. Well, I should stop with that. Neither of them is possible, or practical, or an intelligent thing for a society to do. Equality of outcome, which sounds just fine in a small group, works extremely poorly. Cohen, what's his first name? The philosopher. Yeah, he talks about planning a camping trip. Have I got that right? And he says, well, you know, society, the economy should be run as though we were friends planning a camping trip. Well, yeah, among friends planning a camping trip, we all make concessions to the kids wanting to go to the water park and the adults wanting to sit close to the tent, chatting and drinking beer. Okay, there's a mix of plans, but we plan, he says. And I say, yes, dear, for a camping trip, you're right. But that you've chosen that example shows that you don't understand that to take these ethical, sensible, achievable, doable principles of a small group you can't apply them to a nation, I'll take my own, of 335 million people. They don't work. So what is this equality of permission? Well, it's the right to join the race, however your natural abilities or your educated abilities or your family background, the way your parents were and how they raised you, your nationality, your formation, we might say, permits. You're allowed to as you know, the Trump, perhaps the Trump administration is fiercely against DEI, the policy in universities and companies of pursuing diversity, equality, or equity and inclusion. Well, my first name begins DEI, and I'm very sensitive on this issue. And although I understand their irritation with the intrusion of these departments, nonetheless, I believe in diversity. I'm a living example of it. And everyone in this room is. We're all diverse, as St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians. There are many gifts. Some have the gift of prophecy. I suppose they're the economists. Some have the gift of tongues. Some have this, some of that. The liberal idea, the core, is that we have these diverse gifts. Most of the people in this room are smarter than I am, doubtless, as will soon be obvious. But I do my part. I try to do my little part, and then we trade with each other. We can't just specialize. We also have to trade, and that results in a fruitful society, a creative society. It's not so much efficiency that we achieve, although that's what we teach in the diagrams and the mathematics, but it's the creativity of such societies, astonishingly present in the modern world. Since 1776, that important year, and you know what was important about it, the publication of the Wealth of Nations. From that astonishing year to the present, income per head in the world, including many still very poor countries, has gone from $2 a day to about $50 a day, which is a transformation from the appalling condition of my Irish ancestors to what we're doing right now. I take it that everyone in this room, I look around and I don't see any Habsburg noses right away. I suppose there's no one here descended from the crowned heads of Europe, Asia, or Africa. Maybe there are, but that's all right. But most of us were unspeakably poor. And out of this creativity that was caused by equality of permission came the modern world, came the enriched world. Enriched not just in goods, but in spirit. So that's the argument. One more, 2, 3, maybe 3 more, 5 more, 6 more things. One is that these other equalities of opportunity or outcome are unattainable. Now you'd say, well, no, wait a second. We should be paying for elementary education for everybody, shouldn't we? I would argue that it's particularly bad to have the state providing it directly. State schools, I think, are an abomination. because they get taken over by politics, by the unions or the large bureaucracies. One of the bad things that Margaret Thatcher did is centralize K through 12 education in this country. But and you say, well, but look, come on, we should be paying for, well, and that's supposed to achieve equality of opportunity? Well, look around you. If we're classical or indeed any other kind of liberal, even new or social, we should be cosmopolitan. So from an ethical point of view, we should be treating someone born in South Sudan as identical in value to someone born in Britain. Now, I'm an Anglican, I'm a Christian, so on that score, I believe that's true. God views, by the way, my Anglican God is not an old man in a beard, so be prepared. We should equalize opportunity for everyone born in South Sudan to everyone born in Britain. There's no liberal case for nationalism. It's just not there. It makes no sense to say, well, my people here in Britain, they're the descendants of the Anglo-Saxons, except most Britons these days are not descendants of Anglo-Saxons, but all right. These people on this sceptred isle, they're the ones I should care about. That makes no sense at all. But it's obvious that if we approach the matter of equal opportunity, if we advocate for equal opportunity, it's our responsibility in Britain to give everyone in South Sudan a passport to come here, obviously. Well, all right. So considering that that's not going to happen, we're unable to achieve a substantial degree. I'm making a quantitative assertion here on both the case against socialism and the case against social liberalism. They're both unattainable. Whereas we can, if we wish, now it's obvious that we don't wish, but we can, if we wish, attain equality of permission tomorrow, or maybe next Thursday. We can throw out the 250,000 pages of the U.S. Federal Register, which are the final regulations of all the laws, all the federal laws. You can just throw it out and start with the 3 laws of the common law, which is all we need. And we can wipe from the books the powers that we give to the president in the United States, most of the powers. As the problem, as my friends on the left have sharply discovered in the last 6 months, we've given too much power to the executive in the United States. Rather similar to the power that a parliamentary system gives to the to Parliament. All right, so you understand the permission to join the race. However, the odds are that you're going to succeed. Abraham Lincoln, born literally in a log cabin, had 2 years of formal education. His father couldn't read. His father wanted him to continue as a rail splitter, taking logs and splitting them up for fence rails. Abe had another idea and became the poet president. Andrew Carnegie was the son of a Scottish weaver, etc., 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 et alia, et alia, et alia. Again and again, people, Keats was a working class lad. We say commonly that the modern world was created by science. Now, we look around and we see science all around us, and we think, well, that's it. But science would not have gotten off the ground in Europe if it had been not for the equality of permission. The German universities in the 19th century, or for that matter in the 18th century, in for example, Kant, the son of a saddle maker, were open to all, not to Jews until the 19th century, but open to all others. And that made for a very good university system. Scotland was the same, not England. So there you are. This is both, my argument is both a recommendation for equality of permission, to take back the equality word, express it that way. We aren't going to succeed in making a free society if we don't indulge, honor the very reasonable desire for equality, as Tocqueville said. It's the central passion of the modern world, and it's a perfectly good one. Entailed, as I said, by Christianity and Judaism and Islam and Buddhism and lots of others, this equality. So we need to take back the word as classical liberals. In fact, for taking back the word, my left-wing friends in the United States want to be called now progressives, because the conservatives have succeeded in making the word liberal into a bad word. And I think we should rush in and seize back the L word, which is an honorable title. But it's not just a recommendation for a free society or an appeal, it's also economic history, and economic and social and political and artistic history. It's the freeing from the hierarchy only that made the modern world. I have colleagues here who agree and have written eloquently on this scientific fact, and we agree that what made the modern world is not planning, not redistribution of income, which you might think, oh, well, that's a fine thing. Let's take money from the rich and give it to the poor, and that'll solve everything. It just doesn't work quantitatively. Even the accounting doesn't work. There's not enough billionaires who will keep coming forward to be expropriated, certainly, to substantially increase the condition of the working class. What's improved the condition of the working class is innovation. Innovation comes from the freeing of creativity under equality of permission. So this, I purport to have shown a new theory of economic growth to replace all those erroneous theories that my colleagues in economics have proposed. But it's not new. It's the most central premise of Scottish, and then it's actually first Dutch, Spanish, then Anglophone equality of permission. We have a few minutes for comments, if you wish. I mean, look, what I urge you to do is rush out or go to your computers and immediately order all my books, so I can live in the style to which I'd like to be accustomed. But you've gotten the gist of my so-called thinking in the last 20 years. This, I only came up with this notion of equality of permission about 5 years ago. But the whole tendency of my life, I was once a socialist, as many of you were, because socialism is very attractive to a teenager. They come from a socialist community. It's called the family. And quite naturally, when a middle-class child, as I was, discovers there are poor people, I said to myself, well, let's just bring them into the nation's family. From each according to her ability, to each according to his need. Hey, what's the problem? Let's do it. Allons enfants de... No, that's the other one. That's the people's flag is deepest red. Sheltered oft are martyred dead. It witnessed many a deed and vow. We must not change its color now. You can see that I was actually a socialist. But the old joke is anyone who's not a socialist at age 16 has no heart. Who's still a socialist at 26 has no brain. And I adjust the numbers to suit my case. So that's the story. And without really realizing it, my early work on economic history and economics, it seems to me, converges on this point of classical liberalism. The problem with the phrase classical is that people say, oh, well, but we have a new way. We have a modern liberalism. You people can have that 19th century stuff, but we have the new way. So as I say, we have a few minutes to talk. Thank you.
I wonder to what extent you think that equality of permission needs to be enforced by the law. Compelled.
Well, you've touched on the one thing that still stirs my socialist heart. I'm going to be speaking in October in London to the LSE and King's College, I believe. But I'm also going to be speaking to Brooks, which is a very posh club in London. And I don't know if it admits women. And I'm a little worried about this. But you phrase it well. If the key to the claim of monopoly is entry, if entry is not blocked by the state, then there's not monopoly. That's not to say there aren't natural monopolies. Frank Sinatra had a natural monopoly on Frank Sinatra's voice. And it was God's gift, and he improved it. He worked on it. He went to singing school and worked on it quite hard. But anyway, so we each have, so to speak, a monopoly on our particular gifts in St. Paul's notion. But that aside, as long as there's equality of permission and the state is not blockading entry, I'm willing to let Brooks exclude women, as much as I dislike it. My own club in Washington, the Cosmos Club, until I guess it was about 25 years ago, excluded women. And there was a women's entrance, and you'd powder you'd powder your nose and so forth. And it was obnoxious, but I don't believe obnoxiousness should be a state concern.
I just want to understand a bit better the difference between equality of opportunities and equality of permission.
Well, it would mean what it means in other realms. We don't have any state rules about rock music, right? At least I'm not aware of them. I hope you're not introducing some bill in Parliament So rock music evolves as it evolves. And there's free entry. Free in the sense of not, all I mean is not state regulated entry of boys' bands and girls' bands, right? The same is true of the English language or the Spanish language. There's no state regulation of either of those, and there can't be. It doesn't work. It was tried under fascism and didn't succeed. So why not in the economy? Why not? And I like to think of it this way. The golden rule of Rabbi Jesus of Nazareth is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. 50 years earlier, Rabbi Hillel of Babylon, put the same point in a negative way. He said, do not do unto others what you would not want to do to yourself. And Hillel's rule is more what I'm talking about. It's lay off. My grandmother said her motto was, do anything you want. She was born in the 1890s on the edge and grew up at the beginning of the substitution of the automobile for horses. And she was a horsewoman all her life. She said, do anything you want, but don't scare the horses. Which is to say, don't, set off a big firecracker in the middle of the town square and get all the horses running off in all directions. Be responsible. Take care of your family, your friends, and Uncle Fred. But then enter into a specialized economy and contribute your diversity to the whole. Now, your question is deeper than the answer I've given, I admit, and we need to talk some more.
Are you also attempting to articulate how we can change our rhetoric first in order to advance this concept of equality of permission?
What we need to do, I'm no politician. I'm not Prince Hamlet, nor was meant to be. And I don't know quite what to do, but I do know that the heart needs to be involved. The left and the right, the socialists and social democrats, and the fascists and the nationalists have the best songs, and this is a problem. We need to bring the artists onto our side. We need the country musicians, where, as they say in country music, the rubber meets the road. We need the filmmakers on our side. We need to change people's mental attitude. Because, as Friedrich Hayek wrote, 1956, in the English paperback edition of The Road to Serfdom, in a preface, he said, it's not just that the masters get control of the economy and the society. That's 1984, and it's the Brave New World, and so on and so forth. It's that the population inserts itself. And that's the real road to serfdom. Look at how we reacted to the state's insistence in COVID-19. I myself was obedient, and I shouldn't have been. I should have said, screw you. I'm going to do my jogging without a mask and so on and so forth. But I didn't. So let's start with not digging a deeper hole of statism. If you're in a hole, first thing to do is to stop digging. And the ideological heart stuff, if you don't know Robert Burns's great anthem to equality of permission, namely, a man's a man for all that, you need to know it. You need to go on the internet and find the songs, that song sung by a folk singer, female folk singer, at the opening of the first Scottish Parliament since 1707 in 1999. And most of the MPs there undoubtedly think that this song is a socialist song. I pray it come it will, may through all the world, that we'll all brothers be. And they thought, yes, the people's flag. No, it wasn't. It was a song of Burns's life. He didn't own enough property to vote in Scotland, or in that case in Britain. Yet he was a man, as the song says, of independent mind. The man of independent mind, he looks and laughs at all that. And that's the dignified, adult, liberal attitude. Alas, our politics is deeply based on envy. And if not envy, more and more hatred, neither of which are adult responses to variations in income or anything else. In fact, I often want to call liberalism adultism. So, because I hope it'll appeal to the teenagers. Anyway, that's what we need. I mean, there isn't anything else we can do. It would be highly inconsistent for us to introduce a law that anyone who disagrees with us should be shot. That's illiberal.
Is the ultimate justification for this equality of permission the outcomes that it creates, or the rights of man that I imagine you're thinking of when you talk about it in the 18th century? Well,
I think it's, and that again is a point that you can tell, I haven't quite worked out this. I have various continued thoughts, and I hope we'll all, people who think about it. You can make the case, and I have, that it leads to human flourishing on a wide scale. I mean, on a universal scale. The World Bank reckons plausibly that real income per head will continue to grow if we don't screw it up. And we're perfectly capable of screwing it up with socialism or social liberalism. But if we don't screw it up with war or these political ideas, 2% a year for, I don't know, a century or two. If that's the case, in one century, in the early would it be the 22nd century, income per head in the world will be easily twice what it now is in Switzerland. Well, that's a hell of a change. The people in South Sudan will be able to have nice seminars like this. So, human flourishing. But your question is there some more fundamental foundation here? And I would say that what people want more than money is dignity, self-respect. And that's not achieved by handouts or conquest. Well, maybe by people think it is, but they're wrong. They shouldn't want to conquer Poland. But all right. You could say there's something more fundamental. I would like to avoid the word rights, because it seems to me that it's too easy to proliferate in crazy fashions. I urge you to take a look at the proposed Chilean constitution of a few years ago, proposed by the essentially socialist government there, which was, thank God, turned down by votes, by a majority vote. Count the number of rights, and there are hundreds. I mean, I'm not making this up. Go have a look at it. Hundreds of rights. I mean, the right to have a nice husband. Rights. It's hard to stop it once you get talking about rights. Bernie Sanders, a socialist senator in the United States from the state of Vermont. He's very fierce, and he'll say it all the time. Health care is a right. And he shouts at the people at the hearings. Don't you believe that health care is a human right? Well, yeah, that's interesting. And then why not the right to warm beer? Or the right to bread? Or the right to right. So I want to avoid that, but I don't know how to found it any other way than this consequentialist way, which I've tried to show in my books with a lot of evidence, I think. Maybe people don't believe it or haven't read the books, that it was the consequence not of public projects, not of public education, not of investment, education, all those are very nice and even essential, but they're not themselves creative. They're not themselves permitting people to innovate. And that new permission to innovate had immense effects.
In a book called The Rise of the Meritocracy, published in the 1950s, Michael Young, who wrote the manifesto for the first Attlee government, the ruins of the book, he said, were found in the ruins of Trafalgar Square after the unmerited had revolted. Very interesting point that the resentment, which is clearly could be a resentment, or it often is, a resentment to meritocracy. What's irritating about the Trump movement is that many of its chief political organizers are from Ivy League colleges. The Vice President of the United States has a law degree from Yale, and so forth. Speaking of the riots in Trafalgar Square, I have to admit that on Guy Fawkes night in November of 1959, I was there burning cars. So I think the statute of limitations protects me from
Geez, I hope I haven't condemned myself to be hanged. And what to do about it? Look, to give people respect and dignity. I was raised to honor physical work. In the summers of my university education, I worked as a laborer on the highway department, and I'll still stop watching some men raking asphalt, and I'll stop and watch them, and they think the old lady is admiring their physique. No, I'm not. I'm watching their technique to see if they know what they're doing, and you know, it's crucial that we not have this well, in a way that we don't reestablish the class system that I have seen in Britain crumbling. As a lad, I have to say, at age 16, I came to understand the class system here. And boy, I used to play tennis with on the lawn on Saturday with the daughters of Lord Tryon in Great Durnford in Wiltshire, and then during the week I would work as an agricultural laborer. Not because I had to, I was the son of a Harvard professor, but I did this. And I think we've got to honor everyone's, well, we say in our clinical way in economics, their comparative advantage. But we can't be sneering at other people. And it's the sneering that irritates them most. Look, I worked and lived in the Midwest for a very long time, Chicago and Iowa. And the coasties, as I wish you would start calling them, on the East Coast or the West Coast, used to call our part of the United States flyover territory. I mean, give me a break. So call them coasties, would you please? But that's not the answer. The answer is for everyone to be treated with respect. How to achieve it? We achieve it through our movies, our rock lyrics, our art. That's where the rubber meets the road. Thank you very much.